Before the operation, you must eat nothing for 24 hours. After the operation, you have to get lots of rest. Take the pain medication when necessary, and if you experience a lot of pain, you have got to call the hospital immediately. This is very serious. Today we're talking about obligations. An obligation is an act or course of actions to which a person is morally or legally bound, a duty or a commitment. Must, have to, got to, necessary. These are all words and phrases that you can use to stress how important it is that something happens. This could be useful in many different scenarios, including for discussing rules or deadlines. You have to answer all the questions correctly to pass the test. You've got to do your homework before you can use your phone. For a long-haul flight, it's necessary to arrive at the airport at least 3 hours before the departure time on your ticket. Let's go through each one separately to make sure you know all of the rules. Pay close attention because there will be a little test at the end of the video to make sure you've been listening. First, let's look at the word must. Must is a modal verb, which means that it helps to give meaning or change the meaning of other verbs in the sentence. I must ask. They must wait. It must work. Adding must into a sentence emphasises how important it is. The word must comes straight after the pronoun or subject and before the infinitive verb. To turn this into a negative, you can say must not. You must not run by the pool. Notice how the word not comes immediately after must and before the infinitive verb. To say that you must not do something is a definite order. I must not forget to go to the shop. You must not be late for your flight. It's almost as if the not has more to do with the infinitive verb than the word must, because it means that you will not do the action of that verb. Let's move on to have to. You have to answer all the questions correctly to pass the test. Just like the word must, have to is also followed by an infinitive verb, which determines the main action of the sentence. Have to tells us that it is an obligation. It must be done. You have to go. She has to walk. We have to think. As you can see from those examples, the form or tense of the phrase have to can change depending on the subject, but the infinitive verb must always stay in its base form. You could also use the past tense to show a previous obligation. I'm sorry I'm late. I had to wait for a parcel. Notice how had to is now in the past tense, but wait is still in its base form. The negative of the phrase have to is don't have to. If you don't have to do something, that means that it is optional. It does not mean that you must not do something. For example, you don't have to wait means that waiting is not necessary or important. You must not wait. This means you cannot wait. You don't have to tell me. They don't have to come. I don't have to leave. In all of those examples, I'm saying that the action is a possibility, but it is not an obligation. Okay, the next phrase we'll look at is got to. You've got to do your homework before you can use your phone. Got to is very similar to have to. It follows most of the same rules, except for the fact that the word got does not change depending on pronouns, and you use the contraction of I have with the appropriate pronoun. They've got to practice after school. I've got to see what happens. She's got to go home. Got to is often used in less formal situations than the other two examples we've discussed, and is often used colloquially to say that you really want to do something. I've got so much studying to do, I don't know if I can go on holiday. But Annie, you've been planning that trip for months and you really deserve a break. You've got to go. The negative of the phrase got to is tricky. You could say, you haven't got to. But this only really makes sense in very specific circumstances, usually if somebody has already said that they've got to do something. I can't believe I've got to stay here all week. Well, you haven't got to, you could go home. However, it usually sounds more natural to use don't have to. Lastly, we have the word necessary. Necessary is different to the other phrases we've discussed because it's an adjective, not a verb. For a long haul flight, it's necessary to arrive at the airport at least 3 hours before the departure time on your ticket. To stress the importance of something, you could say, it is necessary to do that thing. So we start with the subject. This must be it or a noun. Then you can use the verb is or the are form if the subject is plural, followed by the adjective necessary. If you'd like to add more information, then you can say to or another appropriate preposition and then give that extra information. For example, it is necessary to bring your ID to the pubs and bars. Or, passports are necessary for boarding a flight. Or, fuel is necessary to drive a car. Now, necessary could be swapped out for many other adjectives that mean the same thing, and all of these same rules will apply. For example, you could use required, compulsory, obligatory, essential, mandatory, vital, and so on. You create the negative form of this by simply adding the word not before the adjective. Like the negative phrase don't have to, this could mean that it is optional or not essential. Or it could mean that you are not expected to do that action. For example, it is not necessary for you to bring your laptop to school. Goggles are not compulsory for swimming. Payment is not required for this experience. So let's recap each phrase and its negative. I must not. You must walk by the pool. You must not run by the pool. I have to. I don't have to. You have to answer all the questions correctly to pass the exam. You don't have to answer all the questions correctly to pass the exam, only half of them. I've got to. I don't have to. We're going to keep these two the same because it's far less confusing. So I've got to in the negative form is also I don't have to. You've got to finish your homework before you can use the phone. Or you don't have to finish your homework, but you won't be using your phone until you do. And lastly, it is necessary. Or it is not necessary. It is necessary to arrive 3 hours before a long-haul flight. It is not necessary to arrive 3 hours early for a short-haul flight. Right, okay, are you ready for your test? I'm going to ask you 8 questions. Each one will be a sentence which uses one of the phrases we've learnt about today. Your task is to change each sentence to the negative form, so please write your answers in the comments. Number 1, they have to read the instructions. And the answer is, they don't have to read the instructions. Number 2, you must eat the cake. In the negative is, you must not eat the cake. Okay, question 3. It is compulsory to take a photograph. And the answer, it is not compulsory to take a photograph. Okay, question 4. We've got to leave soon. And the answer, this is the one that changes, we don't have to leave soon. Did you get that one? I hope so. Okay, number 5, I have to be quiet. The answer is, I don't have to be quiet. Number 6, it's necessary to wash your hands. The answer, it's not necessary to wash your hands. Number 7, she's got to walk the dog. The answer, this is one that changes, she doesn't have to walk the dog. Okay, and number 8, the baby must sleep this afternoon. The answer, the baby must not sleep this afternoon. How many did you get right? Let me know in the comments section, and if you have any questions, do feel free to ask. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up, and if you have a little spare time, then why not join me in another lesson? Oh, like this one. I'll see you all soon.